Okay, I'm going to finish it up with this story. I read this article in the New York Times. I found it very fascinating. Um, have you ever heard of the Esther, Project Esther? Project Esther started around the time of October 7th, and I believe it was around before that. But Project Esther is it's a group of people that are basically working for the Heritage Foundation. Now, y'all know the Heritage Foundation, most recently because of Project 2025. They didn't write it all, but they were the main guys that combined all of the writings. And Project 2025 is basically the dream wish list for all conservatives. Cut the social safety net, get rid of taxes altogether. The American technate, where America is no longer run by politicians, it's run by corporations. I mean, we're kind of almost there. And Project 2025 was recently reported saying that they're about 50% of the way there. And it's only been like 110 days of Donald Trump's presidency. So, Heritage Foundation, really powerful, group. They're a think tank. They were started back in the 70s, under Jerome Powell and Paul Weyrich. Those guys were adamant that the best way to make sure and ensure that Republicans take office is that we kind of subdue the vote as much as possible. The less people come out, the more chance for a Republican to win. That was kind of their beginning. The Powell memo was written back in the early 70s, and that man who wrote the memo, Powell, ended up getting put on the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon. And so the Heritage Foundation has been around for a minute. Now, this Project Esther is it's being run by a handful of people. This one woman, her name is Victoria Coates. And Victoria Coates says the mission for Project Esther is to deport, defund, sue, fire, expel anyone who says anything bad about Israel. Just get them out of open society. That is the mission. So, and whatever they deem as anti-Semitic, that is what the question is. What is anti-Semitism? Now, I mean, in my estimation, anti-Semitism is, like what the Nazis did. If you got swastikas involved, pretty anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic. The Charlottesville riot that happened in 2017, where Donald Trump says, it's good people on both sides, You got the racists on this side, and you got the people over here. They're all good people. They got their points. But them walking around with tiki torches saying the Jews will not replace us. Yeah, I say that's anti-Semitic. Yeah. But here's the thing. Project Esther is not looking at those guys. They, according to Victoria Coates and this other guy named Robert Greenway, these guys are both, they both work for the Heritage Foundation in some respect or another, and that they are focusing on the anti-Semitism of the left. Now, according to them, anybody that criticizes Israel and what they're doing to Palestinians, that's anti-Semitic. If you say you're anti-Zionist, which I am, I'm anti-Zionist because I don't believe that an ethnic distinction saying that your race of people is more superior than another race, I consider that racism. It just is. And let's not get it twisted, folks. People who are Palestinian are Semitic. It's the area. That's what the area is, But according to Victoria Coates, anybody on the left, and that's mostly including, student protesters, and, anybody who is front-facing, publicly facing, criticizing Israel and what they're doing with the bombing and the killing and the siege and the starving and the bombing of hospitals and the killing of journalists. Hundreds of journalists have been killed. hundreds of doctors, dozens and dozens of hospitals killed. We're looking at probably anywhere between 3 to 500,000 dead Palestinians. Because at the beginning of this war, this conflict, where it's really all one-sided and who's got the military and nobody else got the... I mean, the Palestinians and Hamas, the terrorist organization, which we have deemed a terrorist organization, they basically got fucking fireworks, 4th of July firecrackers, you know, in comparison to 2,000-pound bombs that we supply them. You know, Hamas doesn't have an air force. Israel does. Nevertheless, the Project Esther is focused on anti-Semitism of the left. And if you criticize Israel, if you criticize Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, any of those monsters that are doing a genocidal ethnic cleansing, if you criticize them, then you're anti-Semitic. And I made sure that I wanted to read a little bit from the article just to illustrate what kind of batshit crazy person this is. She says the statement of purpose is that we recognize any attempt to delegitimize, boycott, divest, or sanction the modern state of Israel, or bar Jews from participating in academic or communal association must be condemned. Well, first of all, no Jews on college campuses were being denied their academics. There were some Jewish people on campus at Columbia that's saying, I don't like it that I have to walk around the protesters to go to my class. And here's the thing. Many of the student protesters at Columbia are Jewish people. The Jewish Voice for Peace is all Jewish people. They're all Jewish. And they're all criticizing Netanyahu for his war crimes. So you're telling these Jewish people that they're anti-Semitic for criticizing Netanyahu for what he's doing to the Palestinian people. It's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. We're just looking right at a tragedy, and we're pretending like it's not happening. Anyway, let me finish the quote. She says, "We recognize that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are different manifestations of the same hatred against Jewish people." No, they are not. There is anti-Semitism, and then there's anti-Zionism. Zionists is an ethnic distinction between the white Jews and the brown Muslims. That's all it is. Just, here's your straight definition for you, right there. And most Zionists that live on this planet, not just in Israel, not just the United States, most Zionists are Christians because it's end times revelation, apocalypse shit. When Jesus comes back, you know, during the tribulation, there will be the Gog and Magog revolution, and it will be done in Israel. That's if we get all of the Jews to move back to Israel. As if, and the arrogance of this, by the way, I was raised Christian, okay? And I always thought that this was just beyond the pale to me when they were telling me this, is that, you know, if we can manage to get all the Jews to go to Israel, then Jesus will come back. Well, if God is all-powerful, he's omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, he's the man, nothing is bigger, nothing is stronger, then we got to do a task so Jesus will come back and do this thing? If God wants to come back and do his revolution, do you think he needs us to facilitate some shit for him first? I think if he's God, he can do whatever the fuck he wants to. He's God. And Jesus is Jesus. But according to Revelation, that during the tribulation, Jesus will come back and there'll be this thing called the Gog and Magog revolution at the end of the tribulation. And this will be the crescendo of the big movie, and God will kill all of the Jews except for 144,000 Jewish evangelists, Jews for Jesus. Those will be the only people left. And then they will inherit the earth. The blood will be as high as the horse's bridle, according to the Bible. And then all of the at the beginning of the tribulation, all the Christians are gone. They're off the earth. They've been raptured up to heaven. And the only people that are left on earth are all of these bad Jews. But then Jesus comes back and kills all the bad Jews. And, the interesting thing is I'm watching people like, Bibi Netanyahu, who are like, they're going along with this. They're hanging out with Mike Huckabee, who is the Christian Zionist of all Christian Zionists. The guy is batshit fucking crazy, and I guarantee you, he believes every word of Revelation and all about the Gog and Magog revolution. And he's hanging out with this guy because he is the ambassador to Israel of the United States to Israel. And Netanyahu knows what these crazy Christian Zionists believe. He knows it. But yet he's going along with it because it's a means to an end for him. If that means he can do his ethnic cleansing and get rid of all Palestinians and make Israel one cohesive Jewish state, then that's what he wants. Be damned anything that takes to get there. Whoever he's got to saddle up next to, if it's got to be Donald Trump, if it's got to be Mike Huckabee or any other crazy Christian Zionist, he doesn't care as long as he gets what he wants. And he's willing to do anything to get it. You ever heard the expression, the ends do not justify the means? Well, this is literally the ends justifying the means. His ends of being a completely ethno-nationalistic Jewish state in Israel. And the means is, I will make a bargain with anybody, including Christo-fascists, to get there. Anyway, this woman, Victoria Coates, let me give you just a touch of background on Victoria Coates. She started off her career, and this is ridiculous, this just makes me laugh. She started off her career with 3 degrees in college of Italian Renaissance art history, which makes her really qualified, to be seeking out anti-Semitism and working for the Heritage Foundation and working for the government. So she started off with that. She said that after she went to college and she got her Italian Renaissance art history degrees, sorry, man, that is just, it's ridiculous. That's a degree you can get. I remember the Republicans screaming and yelling. It's like, oh, you want a degree in basket weaving? Well, that's what this sounds like to me, a fucking degree in basket weaving, You want a degree in women's studies? Huh. You want a degree in race science? Well, no. I want a degree in Italian Renaissance art history. Yeah, man, that makes me reputable. Well, then she became a blogger, and she started blogging about missile defense. So then she gets a job with Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld. Y'all remember him from the George W. Bush days. All about that Iraq war, all about dropping them bombs, baby. So, the missile defense blogging got her a gig with Donald Rumsfeld. And then she worked for other various Republicans. And eventually she became Donald Trump's Department of Security advisor. And this other guy who is on the Esther project, his name is Robert Greenway. He is a Heritage Foundation security director. And of course, Victoria Coates, who after Donald Trump's first term, she went on to work. She's got her own department at the Heritage Foundation. And there's another person, I can't remember the guy's name. I didn't write it down. I'm sorry about that. But the mission, according to them, is to defund academia and enlist law enforcement to make these people uncomfortable. Anybody that protests against Israel, the object is to make them feel uncomfortable so they will, either crack down on free speech of their students in their school, or they will call law enforcement in to do it. Otherwise, they will lose funding for, departments in their schools. And the colleges don't want to lose funding. They get federal dollars, and that's the threat. Here, let me read you a little bit what she said about that. She said that this Victoria Coates lady, she says, as a former academic, I can tell you the one thing that they care, academics, I can tell you the one thing that they care more about than parking spaces, that is federal funding. She said, the viciousness with which the other elements of the faculty would turn on the the law school and the Middle East studies folk. The gloves will come off very quickly. So you know what that means, don't you? That means that if you start taking their federal funding away, they will start policing their students' free speech. They will get right on that because they love the money. She also mentioned that there are these progressive elites out there. And of course, she mentioned George Soros because, yeah, man, a Jewish guy that survived the fucking Holocaust, man, yeah, he's anti-Semitic. Also, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, is it Illinois? I think so. The governor of Illinois is taking strays over here, so she's blaming him for being one of those elite progressives. By the way, neither one of those fuckers are progressive in the actual definition of what progressivism is. They just happen to not be fucking psychotic fascists like you are. And then, of course, she also leaned into other politicians like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, saying that they are aligned. And here is the Orwellian language. They are, anybody who says anything bad about Israel is a terrorist support network. And you can go after these Hamas support organizations. They even gave it an acronym. They called it the HSO. And this is what Victoria Coates is literally calling anybody that says anything bad about Israel, is they're calling them Hamas support organizations. Because we, as a nation, have deemed anybody who is Hamas as a terrorist. And if you are saying anything in support of Palestinian lives and in Palestinian children not getting bombed or not starving to death, then you are providing material support. That's what they're trying to make happen right now. They're trying to make happen saying anything negative about Israel or anything positive about starving kids. They're saying that you are providing material support. Now, that used to be like providing money, weapons, or any kind of in the physical world support for these, a terrorist organization. That would be considered material support. But now they're trying to move that definition into something else, where if you say words, thought crimes, then you are giving material support to Hamas. Like what I'm doing right now, this woman, Victoria Coates, would say, I am giving material support to Hamas. Now, in this nation, I can criticize my own nation all the live long day. I can call Donald Trump a fucking fascist. And as a citizen, I'm allowed to do that. I should be allowed to do that even if I wasn't a citizen in this country, because we have freedom of speech. But that's in question these days. But as a citizen, I am allowed to criticize my own country. But now I can't criticize Israel. I'm not criticizing the people of Israel. I'm criticizing the Israeli government. I'm criticizing the fucking Likud party. Those people are acting like fucking fascists. And what they're doing is horrendous. It's absolutely detestable. There is no other way to describe it. No other way. But me saying that, now I am giving material support to Hamas, and Hamas are terrorists. So now I'm a terrorist supporter, according to this woman. And they've been really pushing this for a little while. And, in the last couple of months, it's starting to make some headway. It seems like the White House is pretty much in lockstep with this Esther project. You see Marco Rubio snatching away visas from people who even say anything. Ramesa Ozturk she co-wrote an article like 2 years ago saying that she did not think that her school should be actually providing monetary support to Israel in investments. She's like, I don't think my school should be doing this, considering what Israel is doing to the Gazans. I don't think we should be supporting that. And she says, I think that Tufts College should do what their students ask and to not fund this. And that was enough for her to get snatched up by the Gestapo ICE. And thankfully she was released. Mahmoud Khalil is still locked up in a jail in Louisiana, ICE detention facility in Louisiana, for his speech here in New York, at Columbia University. So he's still locked up. There's a few of them. Mandawi, he got out. Ozturk got out. But, I think that they're the lucky ones. And if this woman, Victoria Coates, had her way, she'd have me locked up. She'd have that student at Washington University who spoke she gave her valedictorian speech saying the atrocities that are going on in Gaza. She would want her locked up. These people they're psychotic, they are fascistic, and I don't think that they're going to stop at anything, to get what they want. Whether or not she believes in this bullshit that she's saying, I'm not going to argue that. But I know what their actions are doing, and it is fucking ugly. So Project Esther, Jesus Christ, man, that's some hot ass bullshit right there. Some hot fucking bullshit. And with all the things that Israel has been doing over the last 19 months, and of course over the last couple of months with the siege and all the starving children, and there's still, all the buildings are gone. They're all gone. People are living in tents. Now they're bombing the tents. What do you got in tents? Where do you normally, when there's a lot of people that put up tents, what do they call that? They call that a camp. And they won't let those people leave, so it's like a prison. It's a prison camp, and they're all kind of, locked in, all of them are in this very small kettled area. It's, it's very concentrated. It's a concentration camp. Anyway, it's a lot for you to think about. Sorry, I was a little heated today about that, and I dumped a lot of that bullshit on you. So, I don't apologize for saying what I'm saying. I'm just apologize if you're watching this and it makes you feel bad. It makes me feel bad too. It does. I don't think any of this bullshit be going on. I think that Donald Trump just, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are in a relay race, and and Joe Biden is running there with his baton of Zionistic baton, and he handed it right off to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just took it off of him and said, yes, Joe, I'm going to run this one all the way to the finish. And, they just said that Donald Trump just said that he's going to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya. Yeah. And the fact that it used to be 2.3 million people, and now it's 1.8, 1.9, tacit admission that they've killed 500,000 Palestinians in this awfulness. I'm not saying what Hamas did on October 7th was good. It was bad. It was awful. They shouldn't have done that. It was fucking terrible. A lot of people died. A lot of people lost their lives. It's about, I think it was like 700 citizens and about 500 soldiers lost their lives in that. And that's a tragedy, and it's scary as shit. And I condemn Hamas for doing what they did. But the war didn't start that day. The war, shit, man. Every time you turn around in the last couple of decades, Israel has been doing some dastardly shit. They fucking assassinated Shireen Abu Akleh, who was an American citizen reporter in Israel. Fucking took 2 in the back of the head, man. And then they opened fire on her funeral. Little kids, they throw a rock, they call that a terrorist, and they shoot them. Or they grab them and lock them up. They have thousands and thousands of Palestinians locked up in Israeli prisons. And they won't let them out. All the hostages that Hamas was holding, which, by the way, one of them just got out. His name was, God damn it, Eden Alexander, who is an American American actor who went and volunteered for the Israeli army. Probably not the smartest thing he ever did, or he was working with the Israeli army. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, the deal was that Hamas would release Eden Anderson in exchange for food trucks getting let into Gaza. And Donald Trump and I believe this guy who was working for him named Witkoff said that he would do that. They got Eden Anderson out, and then Donald Trump's like, fuck you, no food for you. And then they let in 9 trucks of supposed food. Turns out it's filled with body bags. They're making little jokes about it. It's great. It's great. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. We're watching a fucking ethnic cleansing and a genocide happen right in front of our eyes, and everybody seems to be how much money we can make off of it, or how quickly we can get this to end so I can get my deal with Qatar for a $5.5 billion golf course deal. Or, Chuck Schumer going, I really wish that these kids would stop talking so much about the Israelis. You kind of coming off a little anti-Semitic. That's all I'm saying. It's a hot mess, folks. And it ain't looking like it's going to get any better anytime soon, but I figured you should know about it. And check on that New York Times article about Project Esther. It's actually a pretty good article. I felt like I should talk about it today. Anyway, that's the show for today. I really appreciate you sticking around and watching all my blathering. I do run off at the mouth sometimes, and I can't help myself. But I do appreciate you sticking around, and please like and please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It means the world to me. I'll love you down. I'll dance at your wedding. It's awesome stuff. You have a great one, and I will catch you next time. You take care, okay? Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe. Keep rocking.